John Paul and telling me JP.
Oh, it already started.
No, it's fine. Okay. So I came to talk about nuclear power today. Now, in today's world, it's a huge controversial issue. We look at Diablo Canyon, our power plant, San Luis Obispo, just recently got shut down. But all over the world, there's a fossil fuel problem. And so, to start, it's important to understand that it is a viable source of alternative non-renewable energy. But like I said, it's controversial. Now, it's extremely efficient, reaches at about 92%, which is extremely efficient, especially compared to solar or wind. It has almost no CO2 emissions. The power plant itself does not emit CO2, but there are risks involved. But the NEI President and Chief Executive Marvin Fertel stated, U.S. nuclear power plants continue to operate at high levels of safety while generating affordable electricity that our society and economy rely on. I think that's important, but I wanted to understand whether the risks outweigh the benefits. But before we get into that, it's important to understand how nuclear power plants work. It's a very complicated process, but this is narrowed down to a very simplistic idea. And really what it is it's fission, not fusion, so it's apart. And a neutron is shot into the nucleus of a uranium-235 atom, causing it to break, which releases high amounts of heat and shoots off into other atoms, and it's just a continuous cycle. And this creates a lot of heat and a lot of energy, which we use to convert and use into our electricity. Now, the pros of nuclear power, we have energy reliability. Just like coal, it's 24/7. It will never shut down unless, there's a nuclear problem, and we don't want that like in Japan. It's highly efficient, at 92%, and one of the power plants can provide 720,000 homes of electricity. The carbon-free emissions, as you see in the graph here, when compared to hydro, solar, wind, geothermal, at 63%. Very good, and it creates a lot of jobs, just like any business or infrastructure. It creates about 100,000 jobs for one nuclear power plant. And there's a lot of economic benefits. In fact, it's extremely huge. Locally, you can have $470 million annually in sales. You can have $67 million in Fed taxes, $16 million in state taxes, and $40 million in labor income annually. But when looking at the cons, there are a lot of risks. So you have radioactive waste. This is very controversial as well. There's a lot of engineers and a lot of people looking to improve the safety and the containment of the radioactive waste, but it is a problem. In America, they do a really good job of containing the waste and making sure that none of it gets spilled into the environment and the ecosystem around them. But we don't really know what to do with it, so they kind of just store it all together. For example, this is underwater. Sometimes they just have like large metal tanks that they put it in. But there are problems around the world where they'll just dump it, and that is a problem. And then we have the health effects of the actual radiation itself. In fact, the problem is, according to Mega Uranium Ltd., today's nuclear energy production... since natural radiation is estimated to cause about 1% of all cancers, radiation due to nuclear technology should eventually increase our cancer risk by 0.002%. Now, it is a small amount, but it is cancer and it is impossible to get. And with today's world, without a cure of cancer, we don't really want that. And then there's reactor malfunctions. We've seen it in Japan, we've seen it in Chernobyl, and we've seen it in a couple other incidents around the world throughout time. And then we have the fact that nuclear energy is not truly renewable, like solar and wind. We do use uranium. It is a resource and it does get consumed, and it is not replaced once it is consumed. And then you have the water extraction, which is a big deal. Not many people know about this. It takes a lot of water to cool down the system. And what they do is, now with that really hot water, wherever they got it from, whether it's like a lake or the bay, like in Diablo Canyon, they'll release that hot water back in to the main source. And actually in Diablo Canyon, my stats professor was doing recordings over there, and the temperature rose to such a degree in that little bay where they released the water back that they actually had a different marine life, even tropical fish that you would see down in Baja California. So there is that change of ecosystem that can have a huge impact. And then one of the main problems is the startup cost. It costs billions and billions of dollars to start up a nuclear power plant. But the electrical diversity in the U.S. since 1950 as you can see, we have coal, hydro, oil, gas, nuclear, and then you have wind and solar, and then other, like biofuels and stuff like that. But as you can see, nuclear is at 20%, which is relatively high, considering the fact that there aren't many nuclear power plants, but that's because it does produce a lot of electricity. And we're looking at the comparison of other forms of energy. Like I stated earlier, the efficiency out of the maximum 100% is about 92.2 in 2015. Geothermal is about 71.7, but geothermal really isn't used because it's extremely expensive, it's extremely dangerous, it's pretty much just drilling straight down to the mantle. And then you have gas, coal, hydro. You can make this comparison, but nuclear power is very efficient. In fact, according to Mega Uranium Ltd., today's nuclear energy production saves around 2.4 billion tons of CO2 a year annually that would otherwise be caused by fossil fuels. And then when we look at the greenhouse emissions comparison, now like I said, it does produce CO2, but it's very low, and it's not the power plant itself that produces the emissions, it's the mining of the uranium and the building of the infrastructure. But when you look at coal, oil, and natural gas, they are extremely high, and that is the main source of our global warming problem and CO2 emissions. And then another look at efficiency, which I thought was very interesting. Actually, it comes from a very credible source, the World Nuclear Association and the Nuclear Energy Institute. Just one pellet provides as much as 149 gallons of oil, 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas, and 1 ton of coal. As you can see, that is a huge improvement. And overall, it's viewed as unsafe in society. Media is very biased on nuclear shutdowns and hazards and stuff like that. It's expensive to start, to build, and the waste management is actually a huge problem. And then, but on controversy, nuclear reactors do not produce air pollution and carbon dioxide. It's just the building process and the mining. And then, actually, in the U.S., though, like I said earlier, the safety and security is very complex, and there's a lot of debate on what we should do and whether we should keep opening nuclear power plants with where we're at in the safety and security of that material and that waste management. And I felt that even though that they are extremely efficient, it is not enough to combat the issues at hand, especially when it comes to waste management and how we distribute the water afterwards. And I think the goal is to be environmentally safer with how we produce our electricity, as well as our nuclear power plants, and for there to be cheaper nuclear power plants, and perhaps have the government subsidize the startup cost if we were to become more environmentally safer.